Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Chapter 14. Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. Quirrell, however, must have been braver than they thought. In the weeks that followed, he did seem to be getting paler and thinner, but it didn't look as though he'd cracked yet. Every time they passed the third-floor corridor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione would press their ears to the door to check that Fluffy was still growling inside. Snape was sweeping about in his usual bad temper, which surely meant that the stone was still safe. Whenever Harry passed Quirrell these days, he gave him an indulgent sort of smile, and Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. Hermione, however, had more on their mind than the Sorcerer's Stone. She had started drawing up revision timetables and color-coding all her notes. Harry and Ron wouldn't have minded, but she kept nagging them to do the same. "Hermione, the exams are ages away." 10 weeks, Hermione snapped. "That's not ages. That's like a second to Nicholas Flamel." "But we're not 600 years old," Ron reminded her. "Anyway, what are you revising for? You already know it all." "What am I revising for? Are you mad? You realize we need to pass these exams to get into the second year. They're very important. I should have started studying a month ago. I don't know what's got into me." Unfortunately, the teachers seemed to be thinking along the same lines as Hermione. They piled so much homework on them that the Easter holidays weren't nearly as much fun as Christmas ones. It was hard to relax with Hermione next to you, reciting the 12 uses of dragon's blood or practicing wand movements. Moaning and yawning, Harry and Ron spent most of their free time in the library with her, trying to get through all their extra work. "I'll never remember this," Ron burst out one afternoon, throwing down his quill and looking longingly out of the library window. It was the first really fine day when they'd had in months. The sky was a clear, forget-me-not blue, and there was a feeling in the air of summer coming. Harry, who was looking up Destiny in 1,000 magical herbs and fungi, didn't look up until he heard Ron say, "Hagrid, what are you doing in the library?" Hagrid stepped into view, hiding something behind his back. He looked very out of place in his moleskin overcoat. "Just looking," he said in a shifty voice that got their interest at once. "And what you all up to?" He looked up suddenly suspicious. "You're not still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are you?" "Oh, we found out who he is ages ago," said Ron impressively. "And we know that dog's guardian. It's a sorcerer." Shh! Harry looked around quickly to see if anyone was listening. "Don't go shouting about it. What's the matter with you?" "There are a few things we wanted to ask you, as a matter of fact," said Harry, "about what's guarding the stone apart from Fluffy." "Shh!" said Hagrid again. "Listen, come and see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything. Mind, but don't go rabbiting about in here. Students aren't supposed to know. They'll think I told you." "See you later, then," said Harry. Hagrid shoved off. "What was he hiding behind his back?" said Hermione thoughtfully. "Do you think it had anything to do with the stone?" "I'm not going to see the section he was in," said Ron, who had enough of walking. He came back minutes later with a pile of books in his arms and slammed them down on the table. "Dragons!" he whispered. Hagrid was looking up stuff about dragons. "Look at these. Dragon, species of great breeding in Ireland, from Acto in Tanto, a dragon's keeper white." "Hagrid always wanted a dragon, he told me, so the first time I've ever met him," said Harry. "But it's against our laws," said Ron. "Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709. Everyone knows that. It's hard to stop muggles off if we're keeping dragons in the back garden. Anyway, you can't tame dragons in Dangerous." Those are dragon eggs. They are called dragon eggs, from dragon breeding for pressure and profit. Hungarian horntail, Ukrainian iron belly, Antipodean overpalay, Swedish short snout, Hebridean black, Peruvian thubertooth, Chinese fireball, Romanian lockhorn, Norwegian riderback, common Welsh green. You should see the burns Charlie's got off of wild ones in Romania. But there aren't wild dragons in Britain, said Harry. Of course there are, said Ron. Common Welsh, green and Herbinian blacks. The Minister of Magic had a job hushing them up, I can tell you. Our lot have to keep putting spells on muggles who spotted them to make them forget. So what's on earth's Hagrid up to, said Hermione. When they knocked on the floor of the gamekeeper's hut an hour later, they were surprised to see that all the curtains were closed. Hagrid called, "Who is it?" before he'd let them in, and then shut the door quickly behind them. It was suffocatingly hot inside. Even though it was such a warm day, there was a blazing fire in the gate. Hagrid made them tea and offered them slow sandwiches, which they refused. "So you wanted to ask me something?" "Yeah," said Harry. "There was no point beating about the bush. We were wondering if you could tell us what's guarding the Sorcerer's stone apart from Fluffy." Hagrid frowned at him. "Of course I can't," he said. "Number 1, I don't know myself. Number 2, you know too much already, so I wouldn't tell you if I could. That stone's here for a good reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts. I suppose you worked that out and all. Beats me how you know about Fluffy." "Oh, come on, Hagrid. You might not want to tell us, but you do know you know everything that goes on round there," said Hermione in a warm, flattering voice. Hagrid's beard twitched as they could tell he was smiling. He only wondered who had done the guarding, really. Hermione went on. "We wondered who Dumbledore had trusted enough to help him about a few." Hagrid's chest swelled at these last words. Harry and Ron beamed at Hermione. "Well, I don't suppose it could hurt you. Let's see. He borrowed Fluffy from me. Then some of the teachers did enchantments. Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall. He took them off on his fingers. Professor Quirrell, and Dumbledore himself did something, of course. Hang on, I forgot someone. Oh, yeah, Professor Snape." "Snape?" "Yeah, you're not still on about that, are you? Look, Snape helped protect the stone. He's not about to steal it." Harry knew Ron and Hermione were thinking the same as he was. If Snape had been protecting the stone, it must have been easy to find out how the other teachers had guarded it. He probably knew everything, except, it seemed, Quirrell's spell and how to get the past Fluffy. "You're the only one who knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid?" said Harry anxiously. "And you wouldn't tell anyone, would you? Not even one of the teachers?" "Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore," said Hagrid proudly. "Well, that's something," Harry muttered to the others. "Hagrid, can we have a window open? I'm boiling." "Can't, Harry. Sorry," said Hagrid. Harry noticed him glance at the fire. Harry looked at it too. "Hagrid, what's that?" But he already knew what it was. In the very heart of the fire, underneath the kettle, was a huge black egg. "Oh," said Hagrid, fiddling nervously with his beard. "That's, Where did you get it, Hagrid?" said Ron, crouching over the fire to get a closer look at the egg. "It must have cost you a fortune." "Won it," said Hagrid. "Last night. I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game of cards with a stranger. Think he was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest." "But what are you going to do with it, even if it's hatched?" said Hermione. "Well, I've been doing some reading," said Hagrid, putting a large book from under his pillow. "Got this out of the library. Dragon beating for pleasure and profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in that. Keep the egg in the fire, 'cause their mothers breathe on them. And when it hatches, feed it in a bucket of brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. And see here, how to recognize different eggs. When I go, there's Norwegian Ridgeback. They're rare, them." He looked very pleased with himself, but Hermione didn't. "Hagrid, you live in a wooden house," she said. But Hagrid wasn't listening. He was humming merrily as he stoked the fire. So now they had something else to worry about. What might happen to Hagrid if anyone found out he was hiding an illegal dragon in his heart? Wonder what it's like to have a peaceful life. on sight, as evening after evening they struggled through the extra homework they were getting. Hermione had now started making revision of timetables for Harry and Ron too. It was driving them mad. Then, one breakfast time, Hedwig brought Harry another note from Hagrid. He had written only 2 words. It's hatching. Ron wanted to skip herbology and go straight down to the hut. Hermione wouldn't hear of it. Hermione, how many times in our lives we were going to see a dragon hatching? We'll get lessons. We'll get in trouble. And that's nothing to do. What's Hagrid going to be when someone finds out that he's doing? Shut up, Harry whispered. Malfoy was only a few feet away, and he had stopped still to listen. How much had he heard? Harry didn't like the look on Malfoy's face at all. Ron and Hermione agreed at the herbology, and in the end, Hermione agreed to run down to Hagrid's house with the other 2 during morning break.